Welcome to Be a Voice. I'm Britt Carpenter, and this is Usula Media. Thanks for joining me today. Today, as we continue our talk on switching gears, I have a good friend of mine and a large community leader here in the Kensington area and the city of Philadelphia. I have Margaux Murphy. Hey, Margaux.
Hey, Britt. How are you?
I'm well. I could have really had a real good, extensive lead in for you and said so many things, but it's like, that would have just been like, just putting some fluff there because there's so much we're going to talk about. But thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you for having me.
It's a crappy day out there. It's shitty weather.
It is.
It is. And it doesn't really help the mind frame when it's not in a good space to begin with.
True.
Yeah. Some rough weeks out there lately, huh?
It has been very rough.
Yeah.
I think just the world in general right now is not in a great space.
Yeah. The everything, life in general, people in general. I mean, it's a little fucked up out there right now.
It is. I'm not really enjoying it.
No?
No.
But you've been sticking it out for quite some time. I mean, I know you, Margaux. I know who you are. I've known you for years. I know what you do. But those who are tuning in, they may not. So just tell us a little Cliff Note version, and we'll peel some layers back. Who is Margaux Murphy? What do you do?
Who is Margaux Murphy? I think that I am probably what I do. So just start with that. I am the director of the Sunday Love Project, and we are a nonprofit that focuses on food insecurity in Kensington. And we have a little brick and mortar storefront at Kensington and Allegheny that serves food to the community in need.
You made that so humble. That was like such a humble lead in there. So the Sunday Love Project, that is your nonprofit.
Yes.
And you've started that when?
I started Christmas of 2014.
Christmas of 2014?
Yes.
Specifically on Christmas you started?
Yes, because I screwed up. I was supposed to go to serve at a community service event, and I overslept. So I woke up and felt like a terrible human. So I went to Boston Market and bought a dozen meals and gave them out to people in Kensington and Center City, and then quickly realized that a dozen meals was not going to cut it. It was really cold that day, so there weren't a ton of people out, but more people came out than I had food for, and that was the worst feeling ever. So I sort of made it my life's mission to fix that.
So almost 11 years ago, 10 years ago.
10, yep.
10 years ago you started this.
Yep.
You just felt crappy about oversleeping for
I'm somebody who really likes to keep my commitments. So I said I was going to do something, and I screwed it up, and I wanted to make it right. So I didn't anticipate it was going to be the next decade of my life. I just thought it was going to be something I did that day. But because I was so moved by it, I jumped on Facebook when I got home and just asked the community to sort of help me. I've had a cleaning service for the last 20 years, and I had one day off, and it was on Sundays. So I told my boyfriend at the time, this is so cool. So now we can do this on Sunday. And he was just like, are you serious? Because, he had been waiting for me to take time off, and I was adding to my schedule. So a lot of people wanted to help. And so I went out the next Sunday to the Central Library downtown and served 40 meals, and then, 80
right
after
there,
that.
Shakespeare statue? Swan Fountain?
In front of the Central Library.
Oh.
So, yeah, and then we moved over to Love Park when we got kind of pushed out of there. So we kept getting kind of moved around because various reasons. But
So it was on a Sunday because it was your day off, so hence the name Sunday Love Project?
yes.
All right, that's interesting because I never really thought why.
Yeah, which is really funny now because,
That's your only day off now.
yeah. I mean, our store is open 7 days, so we're open for the actual food part Monday through Friday, and then on Saturday we do kids events for kids in the community, and then on Sunday we do crochet, but I don't technically have to be there on Sunday, but there's always deliveries coming in, so I'm kind of there 7 days a week.
It became your life.
It is my life, yeah.
It is your life. You still have your cleaning business? You still clean?
I clean 1 day a week because I need a break, and that's my break.
It's like your self-care?
That's my self-care.
It's so bad. Margaux, I'm sorry. I'm going to call you out. That's a shitty self-care. But it's good because it is a break. Because I know what it's like to be on those streets. I know what it's like to be in the community. I know what it's like to be bell to bell and then not sleep and then wake up and did I do this? Did I do that? And what can I do here? And you're like me. Your brain doesn't shut down. You are going all over the place. But you didn't just take it as a Sunday thing and we're going to do this every Sunday like some organizations do and we're going to hand you a container of food and pat you on the back, and you definitely didn't pray with them. I know that.
Yeah, I know everyone likes to say I'm doing God's work, but it's really funny to me because people always come into the store and they're like, thank God for this, and God is good. And I'm like, or you could just thank me because I'm the one shopping every day for the store.
Yeah, I know. And people always tell me I'm doing God's work, and I'm like, well, if that's the case, I hope He starts paying me because, geez, He owes me some money.
Yeah, I mean, whatever makes people feel better, and I never shun it. I'm just like, okay, but
I don't say anything to people too. I had a gentleman that I toured recently because he was very interested in about what was going on in Kensington, and he was just for some reason assumed that there was Christian, and I let it go, and I let him have that and hold on to that. But deep inside, I'm like, you're talking to the wrong person,
I think that with me, people are confused because I'm not religious, nor am I in recovery. So they're just kind of like, why are you doing this? And there were so many people over the years on the street that were like, yeah, you're not in recovery. Okay, whatever.
So what's wrong with you then?
No, I mean, they just thought I was lying, and they just were like, yeah, sure. Okay. But I really.
Which is interesting because I'm going to tell you, I think that most of the organizations nowadays, they're not led by people in recovery.
I don't even know.
I don't
really
see
don't
that
know.
the way I used to. Mm-hmm. Like when you started, I started a year and a half or so later, and I started because of recovery.
Right.
That was the reason I started. It was wait for me to stay alive.
Yeah.
And then to give back. But I see that. I think people assume that because of where you're at. And Kensington, you're a native, you're a resident of the area. You know that community.
Yeah.
You've seen the community change. So you went from Center City from Love Park, and you got ingrained into Kensington. How'd that happen?
Yeah, I think it was just
most people want to leave Kensington. You went to it.
Yeah, I have a friend who's a journalist. He's like, you're the only person I know that sees a fire and runs directly into it.
Without water.
Yeah, right. I think I was going out of my way to go downtown, and it just sort of was what everyone knew in terms of Philadelphia is like that there's a homeless problem downtown. Kensington wasn't getting the kind of airtime that it is now. So I think, starting there, and it was very easy to get volunteers to come there because it's considered safer, and and then I ended up getting a indoor space at a church, and I was able to serve meals 3 times a week inside and do clothing and
in Center City.
Yeah, and we had a job reentry program, and we did a lot of cool stuff. But I also live in Port Richmond, a mile from Kensington. So I, driving home, I'm like, maybe I'm not in the right spot. So I just would bring the extra food if we had any to the last stop when it was at 2440. And I just saw how much of a need there was there. And it took me probably almost a year to cross over Lehigh because it's a totally different world, or it was back then. So I would stick around Huntington and around where the last stop was, but it took a long time for me to
I'm laughing because it's the same with me. First of all, I ran the streets of Kensington when I was buying and using and all that. But when I went into recovery, I started in Center City because it was easy to get volunteers to go there with you. And I felt safer if I was by myself,
right? Because
I'm not going to use, or I'm not going to get whatever. And then I started Huntington. Huntington Station was crazy back in that day.
Yeah,
that was actually one of the K&A wasn't that big of the way it is now. It was big, but
I don't even know if I have anything to base it on. So I was around Huntington, and then I moved to Somerset when Eddie Z moved there. And then I just kind of stayed there, and then it just gradually, it was these baby steps, and I would go a little further every time. And then, finally, I got comfortable at K&A, and I was just these are my people. They were really great people there.
So you were out serving, you did food,
yeah,
whatever resources you could get for them, whatever advocacy you could do for them, you were doing. And you did that for how many years before all of a sudden you all of a sudden started to switch gears and what you wanted to do?
I did it for 8 years. So we
8
had,
years.
yeah, and we had our former chef was from Veg Restaurant, and so so she was a rock star, and she was putting out 5,000 meals a week, and we were working with World Central Kitchen, and we had a lot of support, and so I was just, the inconvenient part was that we were based out of Rittenhouse, so I would have to like load up my little cube before I had a van
Church.
or a bigger vehicle, and I would go back and forth from Rittenhouse to Kensington, often like 3 times a day, especially during the pandemic because there weren't a lot of people serving and people were still hungry. So,
Were you still in Rittenhouse during the pandemic?
I left. Yeah, I was still there. Yeah.
Gosh, because I started at Broad and Gerard, and I had to go back and forth.
Yeah.
But I was over there in 2019.
Okay.
So right before.
Yeah.
And I saw that all implode. So, okay, interesting.
Yeah, I think we left there in 2021, the end of
Okay.
2021. Yeah. So
you were based out of that church up until 2021.
for 4 years. Yeah.
And you were mobile.
Yeah.
You didn't have a brick and mortar. You didn't have a base of operations.
We did. We were serving out of the church after. So I was in operations for about 2 years, and then I applied for a grant with the city, saying that I had a space, and I didn't. But I figured if I got it, I would figure something out. So I got it, and it just so happened that the pastor of that church had come out and saw what we were doing, and sadly, the church had to go outside of its own community to find someone to do service work in their church. So I'm probably the most non-religious person, but I needed a space, and I didn't care, where it was. I just wanted to be able to serve people. So there was no praying over meals. There was none of that. I mean, there was definitely like them trying to get me to do that kind of stuff. But I also had talked to so many people in Kensington that said that they don't really want, they don't want to pray for their food, it's just some people just want to eat, and, they don't want to feel like they have to earn it,
Oh, I know. Because when we used to go out and we would stand on the steps, there'd be a faith group to the one side and then us, and they'd always say to us, we know you don't want to pray, but you want to pray with us. Well, if you know we don't know,
right.
We just want to make the connections. And you can do that with that. And listen, I give them all the credit in the world. They're out there, they're doing the work, they're putting it in. But you're right, it's not for everybody. Not everybody wants that. There is a very faith-based group of people that are on the streets, though, because that's all they have to cling on to sometimes.
I think that's probably true. I mean, to me, it doesn't matter why you're doing it, but I think like having to let people know that that's why, it takes away from the bigger picture. And I don't know. I mean, this is why I love Shane from Raw Tools so much. Do you know Shane? He's lovely, and I would not know he was a pastor unless he told me, because he does not have to bring it up.
He doesn't come out like that.
He just does the work,
yeah.
And doesn't have to, let you know.
So you went from Center City, which is a different demographic of unsheltered, food insecurity, all different demographics of individuals, compared to 4 miles to the north side to Kensington, which is a huge demographic, which is mainly a demographic of people that back then, the opioid epidemic, because it filtered in. That's one of the reasons I was drawn there, because I'm recovering. But was there a connection for you for that, to go there?
Why did I go there?
Like, was there somebody in your life that, suffered from opioid?
Yeah, this is always a question that gets me, because I'm just like, if I ever ask somebody, do you know someone removed by, and your answer is no, consider yourself so blessed that that has not touched you or anything in your world, because I feel like, of course it's affected me. I don't know. My upbringing was a little touch and go, that stuff. And I have only ever been in relationships with people that are in addiction for some reason, which is, I don't seek that out, but it seems to fall into my lap. So now I'm just not dating for the last 5 years, because I'm just scared of what's going to come next. So I'm cool.
You want to break that type mold?
I just, I think, probably a long time ago, I thought maybe I could fix someone. And then I realized that that's just not a thing. So
I was going to say savior mode. There's that savior mode, because we tend to gravitate, and I'm the same way. You always want to get that person that's sort of almost borderline lost cause, but I can fix that person.
Yeah, I think it's just, my father, terrible story, but he killed his girlfriend and then killed himself when I was 3 weeks away from graduating from college. So I was 21. And I ended up moving back to Philly after college, and I met someone who was 17 years older than me, and within a couple of years we got married. And I think it was just, he also had addiction issues, which my dad did as well. but I think I was like looking for a mentor, and then I was like, oh, maybe like this, it might be different, or maybe I can like show him that, you don't need these things, and it was just, I was very young. And, I mean, we're still really good friends. The marriage obviously did not work out, but he's lovely.
But you're still friends?
Yeah, he's great.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You don't hear that often sometimes.
He borrows $50 every week we call it the ex-hubby fee, and then he pays it back right away. And
oh, he pays it back?
He pays it back every time. He lives
nice.
in Costa Rica. I don't really know what, he does. I know what he tells me, and that's enough.
I'm not going to touch it. We'll just leave it there. That's good. You have a good relationship. That's awesome. Yay.
I think it's very important to have good relationships with people from your past, because they know all your secrets.
Yeah, absolutely. I really think that's one of the best. That's really good advice.
Yeah.
That's really good advice. I like that. That's a good way to look at things.
Yeah.
I'm going to note that down. I'm never going to forget that shit, because Lord knows.
Yeah.
But you've sort of enthralled now yourself into the Kensington community. You are a known name in Kensington. If it's not Margaux Murphy, it's Sunday Love Project, or it is now your new venture or program that really has changed gears for the way you were doing work and the way you were doing your distro and outreach and your mission to now you have this brick and mortar grocery store called Greater Goods. First of all, tell me about that. Tell me the why, the how, everything, because I've been there and I love it, but yeah.
So Greater Goods is my baby. So when I was working out of that church in Rittenhouse, I had convinced them to let me do sort of a little grocery store in the basement of the church on Sunday mornings before we served meals later in the day. And it was awesome. We just set up a bunch of tables, and people came in and they just took like one thing from each table, and it still was a choice and whatever, but we had things that could cater to people on the street with like pull top cans, or things that if people had someplace to go, they were able to use that. And the pivotal moment for me there was the church came to me and said they don't want to see homeless people lining up outside of the church on Sunday morning when they're walking in to serve us. And so that was sort of when I started thinking that I need to leave. So I was crushed by that, because I think that they forgot why they're walking into church in the first place.
It's such good God, worshiping people.
Yeah. So,
all right, different conversation. Go for it. Go.
So I never let go of that. And
it's crazy.
My vision was always to have a grocery store, but because when we left the church, we were already in the pandemic. So there was like nowhere I could rent a space. Nobody was looking in it. Like there were just no buildings that, you were going to walk into and get. So I waited and waited. And, I wanted this spot at K&A, and it was, the whole building was being redone. And then my realtor called and was just like, we can go check it out. And I got it. And I was like over the moon. I was actually in tears when they gave me a key, because I couldn't believe that somebody actually believed that I was going to be able to pull this off. So, because there were just a lot of people that told me it wasn't going to work, and I was pretty determined. So now we have 6,000 customers. We are open Monday through Friday for 3 hours a day. We have really wonderful volunteers. We have staff. I've hired staff from some people that I knew that were living on the street when I was serving out there that are sober now. That was really important to me to
that's
show people the other side. Yeah, it's
that's
awesome. And that's a lot of the stuff you're doing, right? Like, the job
I love that. You're giving people a chance. You're giving people that hope. You're showing people that you care. 6,000 customers, 6,000. Right now, you're on the avenue, but you're only steps from K&A.
Yeah.
You're located there. Your building's very unassuming.
Yeah.
Totally unassuming. If you drove by it and it wasn't open, you wouldn't know.
It's funny. We had 6 police officers come in today. I think there was just some activity in the area, and they were just like, what is this place? And then one of my employees was like, well, why don't you come in and check it out? And they got like a full education, and they were just like, we had no idea this was here. And I was like, but you're on the Ave every day? So I think people don't know what it is unless there's a need for them to know. But
I say grocery store, and of course, one would assume then you go there and you're going to pay for your groceries.
No, everything is free. So you walk in.
Okay, so it's not a paid thing. It's
we call it a grocery store because I cringe at the word pantry, because all people think of is like canned goods, and I actually sort of went to a pantry myself the other day to see, one of our clients had said that she was mistreated. So I went to the pantry that she went to just to kind of see what that situation was. And they treated me fine. But what I walked away with was really disappointing. You know, it was a frozen pizza, 2 cans of applesauce, and like some turkey stock and mac and cheese. And I was like, okay, now I don't have, you know, assuming I have nothing, like now I don't have milk or butter, like I can't make the mac and cheese. You know what I mean? And I was just thinking, like, this is not like a very dignified way to treat people. It's like, oh, well, here, be happy with what you get, you know? So like we are the opposite of that, where we purchase stuff for the store. So like I buy milk every week, I buy butter, I buy rice and beans, you know, like sugar. Like I make sure that we have things that the community is asking for. And because it's largely Hispanic, we make sure that, you know, we have things that are culturally appropriate. So the way it works is you get 20 poker chips. That's our currency. And it's just so they have something tangible to see.
Are you a poker player?
I'm not.
Okay.
But
all right.
the poker chips were suggested to me from a friend because we're like, how are we going to keep track? And
the colors,
you know,
of.
It's just, you know, it's just something tangible. So when they see something's 2 points, we take 2 points out, you know, and then if they see, you know, grab some meat, it's 4 points, we take that out. And so when they see they're all gone, they're done, and, you know, they can come back.
How do I get those chips?
You walk in the door with the ID.
And how many days a week can I come to your store?
You can only come once every other week now. We changed it in January. So it used to be once a week. And what we were seeing is that my plan was backfiring. And I created that store as an emergency situation for like in between SNAP benefits, or just like if you're really down and out, not for it to be your regular shopping experience every week. And that's what it was turning into. And so we had all these people who would wait in line and not be able to get in because the people who line up at 7 a.m. every morning, you know, were getting in like on a regular basis, and nobody else was, you know, being able to benefit from that. So,
but still, even every other weekend, still 6,000.
6,000 is a base we have. So we see about 600 to 700 a week. So it's a lot of people in a short period of time.
And you're open Monday through Friday from what time?
9 to 11:45.
So 9 to 11:45. So you're talking like less than 3 hours time. You see that?
Yeah.
So can I just walk in if I don't live in Kensington?
Yes.
I can.
Yeah.
No questions asked.
No, we just need a picture ID, and I'll take jail ID. My favorite story is my friend Sean, who unfortunately passed away. But I knew him for years on the street, and he came in one day and he was like, "Hey, Margaux, what do I need to shop here?" And I was like, "ID, any kind of, you know, picture ID of any kind." And he came back with an ID. It was not his ID, but he was like, "You did not specify." I was like, "Oh, touche." So I took it, and you know, when you come in, your name is now this.
And that's resourceful, and that's what you get out there.
And I'm totally fine with that.
That's
because
awesome.
He actually took the time to, you know, make an effort to try to get.
So you're not looking at background of.
I think it's really gross to have to prove that you're poor. And I've been to other pantries where you need like an excessive amount of documentation, and I just think it's really embarrassing and not very dignified. The flip side of that is I'm sure some people take advantage of us. I'm okay with that because that's not a reflection of us. That's a reflection in the.
I also think
people.
there's a lot to be said for people who do work and they're working 2-3 jobs and they still can't make ends meet.
Yes.
There's that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that, you know, and I know I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
I've been there in my life many times, especially as a recovering, you know, a heroin addict and everything else. You know, I've been there. I get that. So that right there is admirable and respectable. And, you know, it is a pride thing for some people, but also for some people, they could take advantage of it. But once again, how do you balance that?
Yeah, this always used to happen in Rittenhouse. Like, you know, we would give away really nice clothing and stuff just because we were in Rittenhouse. You know, I'm sure you have a lot of the same situations, but, you know, people would give us like brand new Nikes. And I had customers who didn't want to take them because if they were panhandling, they wouldn't get any money because people make these assumptions, right? Like,
because they look at their shoes and you got nice shoes. You got always.
Yeah.
Always.
So like people will still come in our line and they'll be pretty decked out. I'm just like, okay, but also, you know, a big part of, unfortunately, I learned this when I had set up a pantry at Frankfurt High School a couple of years ago, and it was brought to my attention that the football players were not eating, and there was an article that was very upsetting. It was about a football player who was walking to Frankfurt High School. Well, he's going to school on Monday, and he picked up a used piece of gum off the ground and ate it because he hadn't eaten since Friday at school. And I was not okay with that. So I put a pantry in the school, and we were great about refill. Like, and we were there several times a week. And the football players would not take the food because it was more like, do I look like I need that? Like, it was but they'd have the $300 shoes on, and so I just got to the point where I was just like, you know what, could you like maybe take it for your neighbor or something, because like it helps me out, because I'm just, it's more food I have to take back, and then it's like a hassle to get rid of, and I just made it so that like they were helping me, and then it was like they were
Get
taking
that pride
it all
out
the
of the
time.
way. We see that too on the streets, pride.
Yeah.
I see that. I mean, now when I do distro, when I do my boots on the ground and I'm out there are certain people that are like, I don't need that. Yeah. I have a home. So does that make you any different? Just because you have a home, you may be in need, if not more, because we don't know, you may be one step closer to being unsheltered. So if this little piece of resource that we're giving you can help you, take it.
Yeah. I think it's shame, and people, and especially with kids, like they don't want to admit, and it's just a tipping point. So it takes that one cool kid to take it, and then everybody else is like fine with it.
Because kids are nasty.
Yes.
Kids are mean.
Absolutely.
So that just starts a chain reaction. And speaking of Nike, one of the things that you are very good at, Margaux, and that I admire about you, and I've always been like, I can't wait to meet this Margaux Murphy, which has been a few years now. So it's not like I'm fanboying for the first time here. You're really good at community relationships and making those connections and making the right connections, but also because you appeal to people. What we do is a very emotional thing, and you appeal to people like that, but you've had really great support over the years to be able to do this. And, one of them has been from the Sixers.
Yeah.
And that one of your buddies is who?
Matisse Thybulle.
And Matisse was very moved by what you do.
It was that gum story. I'm telling you, that Frankfurt, he called me. I was sitting in the parking lot of Restaurant Depot, and he got connected to me through his agent, and he was in tears, and he was just like, I don't need to talk to anybody else. Like, I'm going to work with you. So he was just very unassuming. So like he was just great. Everybody thinks he gave us tons of money, which he didn't. I mean, like he did help me out, but what he does is like, he'll give me like $10,000 a year in like Nike money, because that's like monopoly money to him. And I'm able to use that where I see fit. So like I'll help out the Kensington Soccer Club, or, a school or whatever. And
that's what I was saying about that. I think it's important that people know that just because they have a status, they're not giving money all the time. They're giving resources.
Yeah.
And the sneakers that was really what I was getting at, because that sneaker thing is amazing. For him to be able to do that, then incredible.
Yeah. And it's like nothing for him, because it's just he's happy to do it, but it doesn't put him out in any way, and it's still like he feels like he's still a part of the community. He loves Philly. The Sixers was his first job. He was a baby. I taught him how to write his first check. Like he, was like 20 when I met him. Like this was where he kind of grew up. So he's sad he's not here, but I think like it was more important. Like he's been to Kensington a bunch of times to serve with me, and been mistaken for Ben Simmons, and people are like, Ben Simmons is over there, and he's like, oh my God.
Wow, I feel bad for him.
But I think it was like at a time where, I don't know how many people on the street are really paying attention to,
And that's okay too.
It was great.
He's not out there for that reason.
And that was even better, because like he didn't want any of that. So it was just, when he came to the church the first time to volunteer with me, and the pastor was just like, so Matisse, what do you do for a living? And he was like, I play ball. And like didn't even say he was on the Sixers. And the pastor was like, oh, are you making a living doing that? Or is it okay? Is it, and it was kind of funny, but he was just like, yeah, it's going all right.
That humble and we find a lot of that in the service industry, in the service, what we do in our worlds and our organizations and in the industry. There's people that do it because they want to do that. There are some people who do it for ops, photo ops, and look at me, but that's not it, and that's definitely not it. But and also recently, what we do requires money, requires funding. And if that funding doesn't come in, then you're going to be cleaning more than one day a week because it's coming out of your pocket.
Right.
And I'm going to be walking dogs more than a few days a week because it's going to come in my pocket. So we really are very grateful and thankful. We work hard to form those relationships. The money that we get as far as grants and donations and sponsorship, that comes because it is worked hard for.
Yeah.
Nobody just gives us the money. Nobody's like, I'm just going to give you a check. Yeah, they'll hand it to you, but it's for a purpose. And recently, because Greater Goods is blowing up, it's getting larger, it's getting bigger, and it's hard to. You were really on the fence there because you didn't know what direction to go, but you really got some good news recently, didn't you?
We did. And before I say that, I just want to preface it with the reason that I want a bigger space is because of everything that's happening in the world right now. And, you know, we have a fair amount of undocumented folks coming in, and I don't want them on display standing outside where it's like one scoop and they can all, you know,
Be gone.
So that's the reason I want a bigger space. It's not because, like, you know, I think we're so fancy.
Well, I think it's also important for people to know that Sunday Love Project or Greater Goods is a very safe space. It's a sanctuary space.
Yeah.
Just like Philly Unknown, whenever you come into our realm, into our space, it's a sanctuary space. And people need to know that. So no matter who you are, where you come from, or what your background is, it's a safe space.
Absolutely. And like we just worked with Esperanza to, they gave us a space across the street for people to wait in the event that they felt uncomfortable waiting outside. Because I was having moms calling me saying, we don't have any food, but, you know, like my kids are really hungry, but like I'm scared to wait in line. So, you know, then I'm doing home drop-offs and, you know, but I can't start doing that because we have too many customers. So this way they can at least wait inside and then we can just run over and grab them.
Not just that, when you get a bigger space, you're able to serve more. And if there's a need, then it's necessary.
Yeah, there's definitely a need. And with what's going on now and like the cost of food, it's going to continue to increase, I think. So, so yeah, I got this weird call, and this woman asked to do a Zoom with me. She was from the Sherry Show. I don't watch television, so I had no idea who that was. Sherry Shepherd, who now I do know who she is, and she's lovely. But
I just remember her from the Everybody Loves Raymond show. She was the cop. She was the
God.
brother. She was the brother's partner.
I did not even put that
And
together.
she was in Friends. She was the one that she said, like she was like Ross's at the table in the museum. That's all I know her from.
Oh my
I know
gosh.
she has a show, but I don't know anything about it. So go ahead.
She is a comedian, and she's been in a bunch of movies with Tyler Perry and a bunch of people like that. So, you know, I had this initial Zoom call, and it was like her assistant or whatever, and she was just like, well, what do you really need? And I just, you know, threw it out there that we needed a bigger building because I was like, this is not going to turn out to be anything, you know. And most of these shows, it's like, you know, you walk away with something, but it's usually $10,000 something, I mean, which is like not bad, but
Money.
yeah. So I mean, I was just like, whatever, I might as well just like throw it out there and see. And then they came to the store to film me, and you know, just like had a conversation with the producer, and it was very comfortable, and I was really grateful that it was in our own space because I do not like being the center of attention, and so I had done Rachel Ray like years before, and I was a nervous wreck because I had to go there and stand in front of a live studio audience, and it's just very uncomfortable for me, and I didn't like it. So they came to us, and then they scheduled a second time to come back, and then like they dropped this $250,000 check on me from Tyler Perry, which was crazy. But Tyler Perry used to be homeless and living out his car, so I think he was just really moved by how far this has come, and also the guy is just like a saint. Like, I don't know how much you know about him, but like I really dug in. He fixed up like his hometown area and like gave everybody jobs, and like he doesn't work for anyone. Everything he does is, you know, of his own doing, and like he's the wealthiest actor in the world. I did not know that.
Billionaire.
1.4.
Yes.
Yeah.
And $250,000.
Yeah.
$250,000. Just here you go.
It was weird.
Well, and so when they did that, like you had no idea what was going through. Like, all right, 10,000. I would think 10,000.
Right.
That's sort of like the base
And that's what
for
I was
organizations
thinking.
when they call us somewhere and they're like, and here's $10,000 from Polaroid or whatever. So
I had expressed to the producer and the guy who's filming a couple of times that I was very nervous about doing any kind of thing like this because typically our line gets longer and we don't get the money to sustain it, you know, so it's like more people find out about it, but there's no money coming in. And so that's always my fear because it has happened a couple of times now. And he just kept like, you know, don't worry about it. We got you, you know, like you never know. TV's magical, you know, and I was just like, okay, you know, but then after he came to film the second time, I was like, okay, this is taking up a significant amount of time, you know, but
I'm going to invoice you.
Yes. So yeah, I was not prepared for that at all. I don't even think I thought about a dollar amount. I think I was just so caught up in like, there was so much activity, you know, they wanted us to have volunteers there. They were waiting around for 2 hours because like the airtime was running behind. And it just was like, you know, I was starting to feel bad. I made everybody wait. And then, you know, it just kind of all came together in the end. But I'm not like a money person. So it was really cool. But I think I don't like that's more money than I can even wrap my head around. And for other organizations, that's like nothing. But I think because, I remember getting that like first $1,000 donation when we were on Rachel Ray, and I almost died because I was just like, someone's giving us $1,000, and now I'm just like, that's like, it's crazy. So, I think that we just have like a phenomenal amount of support, and there's so many good people in the world. And I think that you just have to present an opportunity, and then they're willing to get on board. I don't think that everyone is a leader. I think that, people, and that's fine. Our first
Absolutely.
cook at, the one who gave me the $1,000 donation, who ended up being my first cook at the church. She is a millionaire, very unsuspecting. You'd never know it, but she was just like, I don't want to be in charge of anything. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. You want me to make 100 meals? I'll make 100 meals. But like, I don't,
And that's people's way of giving back, because people don't know how to sometimes. If it's not in their wheelhouse,
Yeah.
and I really know that's weird. They don't know what to do. But when they have something like yourself, who it's so unassuming, you are a leader. You are very, you know what you want. You're very compliance driven. You're very, you're determined and you're focused. But yet you're compassionate, and you don't act like that. You don't have that air about you. Like, this is my show. Like, you're not that person.
This is not my show.
Exactly.
This is
You're
like,
not that person.
no, I wouldn't.
But yet you will take these people and be able to like show them the way. And that's important.
I think that for people to find purpose in what we're doing is so important. And that's always what Meredith, who was the woman I was talking about, that's always what she said, is that I gave her a purpose. She's 65. She just lost her husband of many, many years. She had just moved into the city after living in the burbs and didn't know what to do with herself, and that could have really been a sad situation, but she ended up like meeting us, and then like it just gave her like a reason to keep going. And, she felt great about what she was doing, and she was able to give back in a way that was more interactive than just writing checks.
And I think it's important to know that, that $250,000, that's a lot of money, and it's life-changing. And it's going to change a lot of lives, and it's going to do a lot of good. But any amount, when people give any amount, I'm honored, even if it's $5 or $10, because you don't know what they have.
Yeah.
You don't know what somebody's got left.
Right.
And sometimes people will give you all they have left, because that's all they know how to do.
People that don't have money typically are the ones who go out of their way to give the money.
Best donors. Best donors ever.
Yeah. And that's years ago, I think it's been like either 6 or 7 years. I had a guy on the street that wanted to get sober, and he was ready, and we couldn't get him in anywhere. And I had called the mayor's office. This is my favorite. The mayor called me back 3 months later, which was not helpful. But I sent him to Texas, and I paid for that out of my own pocket before Sunday Love had any money, and it was a chunk. And his grandma wrote me a $20 check every month for the longest time, and he has 7 years sober now. So it's like it was worth every penny that I spent, and it was so cool that she would, it was like, when your grandma gives you like $10 when you're a kid, and it's like the most exciting thing. Like that's how I felt. I was like, that's so awesome that like, I didn't care about the dollar amount. I care, it was just so cool that like she made an effort to acknowledge that.
Those are the victories.
Oh my God.
Those are the victories we look for. They're not little wins either. Those are huge wins. When you get something like that, they're huge. They really are. And, because of what you've done, because of the fact that now you have this, you're going to be able to get a larger location. You're going to be able to really provide for the community. You've been able to connect with the community on different levels, whether it's sheltered, whether it's, non-addiction side, but you're also very involved, and you meet a lot of your friends. When we say friends, they become friends. They're our network on the streets who are, going through something, whether it's, through, opiate, whether it's domestic violence, whatever the case may be. You made those connections. And because of those connections, and because you're a connector, you are now an author.
Yeah. How about that?
What the hell is that? And you know what? For you, Margaux, I'm going to tell you something. Like, you're an outspoken person, which I love. You'll let people know what's going on. You always fight for the underdog, and your writings are great. I read them all, just so you know.
Thank you.
Because I hope that people would read mine too. But you kept that really cute T there. How the hell did you pull that off?
Well, it's, I went to school for writing, and that's what my degree's in. And I taught for a little while, but then Columbine happened, and I was in Colorado at the time teaching, and I got a little turned off from that, even though I came back to Philly and I taught for a little while at the School for the Deaf. And I was just like, okay, at some point I should use my degree, but then I never did. And so for the last 10 years, I just was kind of taking notes, and I had a lot of really awesome relationships with people, and a lot of them didn't make it. And this was such a beautiful way to be able to honor them and tell their story.
So tell me the name of your book.
I Am Loved.
I Am Loved.
The Eternal Quick Stop is the subtitle.
I love that. The Eternal Quick Stop.
Yeah.
So how many stories do you have in the book?
I think there's 30 characters. But some are more in depth than others. The beautiful thing about technology is that I had so much stuff in writing from text messages and Messenger and all this stuff from all these people that, I had these friendships with. And so even if they're not here anymore, I'm still able to, tell their story. And some people made it. And some people have, years and years. The very first person that, that one day that I went out on Christmas in 2014, this is a cool story, but this woman kept coming to the church in Rittenhouse because she would set up for AA meetings while I was cleaning the kitchen. And she was just like, you look so familiar. And I was like, yeah, I get that a lot, because I really do get that a lot. And so I was just like, yeah, maybe we've just crossed. It's a small city, So then one day she goes, you drive that boxy little car. And I had a Nissan Cube. And I was like, yeah. And she was like, you gave me a meal that Christmas and this was God, 5 years later, probably. And she now, I think she has 7 years sober next month. So it wasn't, and she is a character in my book, and I told her story, but she will say, Margaux did not change my life. It just so happened that I remembered that, and it maybe planted a seed. I didn't run out and get sober after that. It took years. But she had been out there forever, and now she is married with a child, bought a house, and is living her best life. So I think that's pretty cool. So
and I'm so glad you said that, because there are so many success stories that we don't hear about.
Yes.
The media has, propagandized overdose deaths, and the word, accidental overdose. I really don't think anybody ever goes into it thinking they're going to overdose. So I hate that to begin with. I'm really not sure what that means, but, and that really demonizes the work that we do, and people really condemn us and criticize us for the work we do, because they call us those words like enablers. And out of everybody out there on the street, you and I are definitely not enablers. We will give to the community and do our mission and service that we're there to do, but we do not enable. But out of those stories, there are so many success stories. There are so many people that come back, and those connections are important, and you're able to tell them. So to share that with people is amazing. Has the book hit yet?
It will be out in 3 to 4 weeks. So yeah, we're just doing little final edits, a couple of little pictures, and it's good to go. I'm excited. It's not long. It's 130 pages, I think.
It's long enough.
It's long enough. I want people who are not big readers to read it, because it's important to me that my friend Ryan was reading this book. He came over last night and was sitting on the couch reading it, and he's like, take a picture, because it's the first time you're seeing somebody read your book. And I was like, this is the first time I've seen you read a book. So the fact that he was actually engaged enough.
Oh, poor Ryan.
And he's not in it. So he's not. There were a couple of people in my life that were just too big of a story to condense into this book. So people like Ryan and my friend Courtney will have their own books, because their stories were just over many years.
And plus, those stories aren't over yet with you.
Right.
A lot of them, and they're not over with you, some of them, but they're not forefront with you, the ones in the book. Some are not here anymore at all. Some of you said have moved on to better lives.
Right.
Some, we don't know where some people get to.
Yeah.
So it's those people that are in the forefront right now are those stories that continue to be told because they continue to get told because we're forming them.
Yeah. And these are definitely like, I mean, the point of the book is to show that people are loved and that they're more than their addiction. You know, I feel like people just get summed up as like, oh, they're an addict, you know, and that's like, that's their whole being, you know, and I'm like, there's so much, people are really complex. And just because you have an addiction doesn't make you less complex. I mean,
It's only a part of who you are.
Yeah. I mean,
it's not the sum of your whole parts.
Yeah. I mean, like I can be a bitch sometimes. That doesn't mean that's who I am. You know, I mean, like everybody has multiple, you know, I mean, I don't know. I just thought it was really important and there are a lot of people in the book that have turned their lives around, and and I think it's just important for people to see where they started and how far they've come. And some of these people, when I interviewed them, you know, it was like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and now they're married with kids. So I had to go back and like, is it okay to share your story? And like, no one has really changed their mind about anything. You know, they're just like, I want to be honest with my kids, you know?
And that's so important because our stories make us who we are.
Yeah.
And you never know who it's going to impact.
Yeah.
And there's such impact in the stories out there. I mean, your story yourself. I mean, your history of you know, even with your father to relationships to where you are now. Those stories are so helpful to others. People cling on to that because you give them hope. I know that word is so played out sometimes.
No.
But guess what? We really do. It's something that you really provide for people by opening those doors you know, some people have, you know, get out of bed in the morning. They don't want to go to work. They don't want to do anything. People don't want to get out of bed sometimes to save their lives.
Yeah.
But you get out of bed every day to go and help others and provide for others. So there's something to be said for that.
As do you.
What's that?
As do you.
Yeah, and I'm also one of those persons that lays there some mornings like, why am I getting out of bed? I don't want to do this, you know? And it's not like do what I'm doing. I just don't want to do this life, you know? It's just me, you know, but yeah, I think, you know, and that's, you know, that takes a special person. It really does. And it's okay to be a bitch then. It really is because you earn that.
I mean, I think sometimes people think like, you know, I had my friend Kate, she passed away, but she was just like, why are you always nice? And I was like, oh my God, you're hilarious. Like, ask any of my friends if I'm always nice.
My God, you're saying like, you know, like, oh, you're always smiling. I'm like, really?
Yeah. And I think like, you know, and also like a lot of these people think like, oh, you had such a perfect life and that's why, you know, and I'm just like, wow, like I don't need to get into all of that if we're not going to do that. But that's not, obviously I would not be drawn to this if I didn't have some part of me like, you know.
For 10 years, going on 11, you've devoted your life, you devoted your time, you devoted all your energy to community betterment, to people betterment. What do you do for Margaux betterment?
Oh my God, I was so fearful that you would ask me this question.
You knew this was coming. There was no way you were avoiding that, Margaux. And we got this on tape now.
Really, I mean, most of my joy is reading and writing. I mean, I do go out with friends and do social things, but I am a person who likes to be home and just like kind of in a quiet space. I'm like a really simple person. I don't need much. I mean, we're about to close the store for 2 weeks for vacation because I just did an employee handbook and I realized that you can't work people to death like you work yourself to death. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to give you guys a break. So we're going to take two weeks to close down and kind of reboot. But, you know, everyone's like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, you know what? My house is going to be paid off in August. And after 20 years, so I'm very excited about that. So now I'm starting to get to the point where I'm like, I want to fix this place up because there's so much I haven't been able to do because it's like hard to
pay a mortgage and fix up a house.
Yeah. And just,
pay
you
for
know,
the rest of your life.
Yeah. And like, you know, nobody that's running a nonprofit is like, you know, if you're doing it properly, you're not banking, you know, like you're getting by.
Then I must be doing it like better than anybody. So
No, but I mean, like, that's why it's, you know, it's still helpful to clean houses too, you know, because it's a little extra cash. And, right. But I think just getting to a point, I've had so many people from the street, like living in my house over the last million years. And everybody was like, you have terrible boundaries. And, you know, I take people in when they don't have anywhere to go. And I don't know that I will continue to do that, you know, because I had some things like, you know, I mean, no one really steals from me, but I did have somebody overdose in my house, like on my kitchen floor, and had I not come home early that day, he would be dead, and I don't know that I need to bring that into my home anymore. But I did always kind of feel like I was people's last stop for, there are some people I knew just weren't going to make it, and I just wanted to give them the opportunity to try. And after they had expressed that, so, another one of my friends said he just needed 4 walls, so I let him stay in my place for a couple of weeks. My niece was living with me at the time. The two of them were great friends. And I literally was locking him in my house because he was like, do not let me out. So I would set the alarm when I left. And I'm like, if you leave, the alarm's going to go off. The police will be here and you have warrants. And he was just like, oh my God. So he just stayed and he did detox. And I thought he was going to make it. And, he ended up leaving and he died not too long after, which sucked. But I know that there was a respect, right? So I said, if you decide you're going to relapse, leave the key and lock the door on your way out. Let's not do a big dramatic, that's your choice.
You know what you're doing? Go do it.
Yeah. That, I can't stop you from doing that. And I don't want to turn my life upside down. So that's just where, we don't have to part ways, but at that point you're not staying here anymore.
You get to part those ways.
Yeah.
I'll still be your friend. I'll still
absolutely
care for you, but there's stipulations with that.
Yeah.
And that's good. Those are boundaries, and people need to know that. And you don't need anybody's permission to do what you need to do in your own home. And I know people look at things differently. I mean, I personally, I am the opposite of you. I go home, I have my dogs. I want to be home alone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm around them in a different sense every day. And, so I'll try to find them a place to go. Mm-hmm. So not just send me your house.
Oh yeah, no. My house is definitely not the first opportunity. That's not the first thing I suggest. And I don't think it'll happen anymore. But I think it was just... it took me years to figure out that I can only do so much, and I really liked a lot of these people, I mean, my friend Courtly, her family would not help her, give her a place to stay. And I didn't want her on the street. So I took my chances, and she did well she did well enough that I left her in my house when I went on vacation and came home and she didn't do anything wrong. Nothing went, if she did something wrong, it was outside the home and I didn't know about it, and that's fine. But nothing, there was no catastrophic, no one had ever trusted her before, and she took it very seriously.
Well, that's that hope. You give people hope.
Yeah.
So if people want to find out more about Margaux Murphy and more so the Sunday Love Project, what's your website?
The website is sundaylove.org.
Sundaylove.org.
Yep.
Social media.
At Sunday Love Project on Instagram and the Sunday Love Project for Facebook. And then if anyone wants to reach out to me directly, sundayloveproject@gmail.com.
Where do you need the most, I shouldn't say that, where would you like to see the most volunteer time, or what do you need the most right now for your organization?
Bodies. I think if people want to come in and volunteer, that's great. We had an awesome woman come in today, and I was a little nervous because she had messaged me last week and said, I have a 7-year-old and she really wants to volunteer. And I thought, a lot of times people bring their kids in and the kids can't hang for 3 hours and they're complaining. And I was like, when you sign up, I need you to stay the whole time because we're relying on you. We're a very small staff, and I'm trying to keep it that way because I want our money to go back into the community and not, just paying a bunch of people to be there. So we really need volunteers. And this woman and her child were rock stars. This kid worked like she was a 25-year-old.
And I think it's great that they bring kids out because it gets the education, it gives them exposure, and there's nothing wrong that goes out there.
It's great, although over the years I have had some very odd conversations of teachers calling me and saying I want to bring my class in so they can see what happens when you do drugs. And I was like, okay, well, this isn't a zoo. So that, and also, here. Yeah. And I'd love to see those waivers of we're going to take your child to Kensington, sign here. So you're always going to get those people who are kind of the voyeur, they just are curious about what it looks like. I don't want to give people a reason to do that. So if you want to come, that's great. I always just say if you can't have an open heart, then you probably don't have a place here. But You know, I feel like we are in a situation where we could possibly change people's minds about what they think they know and make them like a little bit more empathetic.
Absolutely. I love it. I love that. So make sure that you're checking Margaux out. Sunday Love Project. Check out all the amazing work she does. There's so much more we could have unpacked in this episode. I mean, an hour is never enough sometimes, especially with what we go through.
Yeah.
But you can just Google her too, and you'll find out a lot of information. You'll see the great work that you do. Margaux, I'm fortunate that we've crossed paths. I've learned from you along the way. I still learn from you. I admire the work you do. You have given to us as well. I mean, I want to tell you that Margaux's organization is generous. They will help other organizations when they're in need, and it's just an amazing thing. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. I really appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
You're
too.
doing good stuff.
Right back at you. I can't wait to read that book. So, everybody else out there, make sure you grab a copy of that book. One more time, the name of the book.
I Am Loved.
I Am Loved by Margaux Murphy. The rest of you, remember, whatever it is you stand for, be a voice. This is Brett Carpenter on Usula Media. Have a great rest of your day.